The job of a utility line worker is dangerous, sometimes even deadly.
The contracted linemen who work for an electric company came in contact with electricity. Both workers were pronounced dead at the scene.
Last year, the Bureau of Labor Statistics listed electric power line installers in the top 10 civilian jobs with fatal injury rates. And that's been true for almost a decade. Now, there's growing momentum to move electric infrastructure underground because it's less vulnerable to extreme weather. But these projects can also be extremely hazardous.
It's a confined space. It's often a dark space, and that restricts your field of movement. That means that if there were an incident in the underground, it often takes some time to remove yourself from the source of danger.
That's Josh Gould. He works on innovation at the Pennsylvania utility Duquesne Light Company. Last year, when a worker was injured installing underground cables, he knew his team needed to come up with a way to make the job safer.
If we had perfect awareness of what an employee was encountering when he or she enters a manhole, I think that is a big contribution to safety. But as of right now, we do not have that perfect situational awareness.
Duquesne had implemented all the tried and true safety measures: hard hats, glasses, headlamps, harnesses. But this gear doesn't give the employee information about the conditions underground. Could noxious gases be present? Did another company already have infrastructure there? Perhaps most importantly, was the structure sound? Josh knew his workers needed more information, so he turned to an unexpected place: the public. They launched an innovation challenge, asking people to submit ideas for solving their situational awareness problem. Josh admits it was an unusual step.
If those traditional approaches were in and of themselves solving the problem, then we wouldn't need to do anything different. But clearly, we all have underground networks where we lack this situational awareness. So it's not just about the sort of creativity and value of the technology itself. It's about the creativity and diversity of approaches that we take to finding the solutions. That's, in some cases, just as important, if not more important than the solution itself. And sometimes it's easy for us to lose sight of that as an industry.
This is With Great Power, a show about the people building the future grid today. I'm Brad Langley. There's this perception that utilities are outdated and slow and not embracing innovation fast enough. But across the industry, there are lots of really good people working very hard to build a safer, cleaner, and more reliable grid of the future. This week, we're talking with Josh Gould, Director of Innovation at Duquesne Light Company, about changing culture to catalyze innovation. There's an old saying in the business world that if you're not innovating, you're dying. For Josh Gould, that applies to utilities too.
We are in need of new solutions, even to remain with the same level of affordability and reliability as a utility industry that we've had in the past. Forget getting better. We all want to get better, but even to stay where we are, we have to innovate.
In a risk-averse industry like utilities, it can be really hard to push for change or even do things unconventionally. Now, Josh believes that getting people motivated around an idea is the key to success. He learned that in his time as an energy technology researcher for the government. So I asked Josh how he puts that into practice at Duquesne. In 2012, you joined ARPA-E, and you were the third employee on the commercialization side. While there, I imagine you learned a tremendous amount. And, I think I've heard you say that one of the most important things you learned was that in the world of tech deployment, the true scarce resource is not capital. It's actually talent and market adoption. What do you mean by that? And do you think that still holds true today?
Absolutely, I think it holds true today. And one of the interesting things, so just a bit of context here. When I was at RP, again, I was third employee on our what we called our tech to market team, essentially our commercialization team for driving the technologies that we invested in to market. And so in my time there, I had a decent sample size, so about probably 40 or so companies. And I actually, before I left, I ran a regression analysis, and the highest R squared, or the highest determinant of a team's ultimate commercial success, looking at 20 factors, was actually their motivation. And then the other most important, the other two of the top three were, I believe, communication and openness to ideas, both amongst the team and with other kind of external stakeholders. So it wasn't about the degree of technology risk. It wasn't about the degree of market risk. It wasn't about like what first market you're selling in. I mean, again, we could go down the list, but it was all about the team.
We've seen a lot of layoffs from really large influential tech companies over the past couple of weeks. There's a lot of really good people out there searching for jobs. And as somebody that came from outside the utility industry, just curious, do you have any advice for utilities on how maybe to capitalize on that talent pool and potentially recruit some of those folks to kind of join them in their clean energy mission?
One of the things that we have put a lot of thought and rigor in just on our team is, and when we think about the mechanics of how to source and recruit candidates, like if you back up, right, we just talked about how it's all about people in terms of startups and commercial impact. And I would argue even at a large company, it's still all about people. And so let's unpack that a little bit. Like, what does that mean, to be able to capitalize on this talent? I think part of it you see like in the kind of academic literature around it that you're able to get your hiring hit rate is a lot higher if you define what it means to be successful in the role. So what kind of characteristics does that candidate have? That's more than just a job description, but what are the specific things that a candidate needs to be successful in the role? And then you screen and recruit on that criteria. And if you're really rigorous about that, and that typically gets you away from, there's certainly like technical roles, like you don't want someone running a substation who doesn't have any utility experience. Like I get it. But, outside of those roles where you need that deep subject matter expertise, if you're really rigorous about defining, again, what are the characteristics of what someone needs to be successful and then screening for those characteristics and thinking about that broadly, you're going to find some non-traditional candidates that you are going to blow your mind in terms of their ability to produce. So I really encourage our own utility, our fellow utilities to think about that and to do it rigorously. And if you do it rigorously like that, I think you'll find that you'll be open to candidates that whose CVs might surprise you, but when they come to the job, they deliver like nobody's business.
I guess the other end of that is there anything utilities need to be doing differently to recruit that kind of talent?
We as an industry haven't thought very much about what our brand is. You've got to have a brand that people recognize and respect. And in fact, the tech companies do a great job of that. Everyone, you've got your Apple phone. I'm using my to hawk any goods here, but I'm using my Apple phone to have this conversation with you. But people know it's an Apple phone. And I think we've got a long ways to go as an industry to build that brand, but I think we're entirely capable of doing that. So thinking again rigorously, like what do you want the brand to be and how it affects all stakeholders, your regulators, your customers, but even potential future employees, and ensuring that brand is modern and attractive. And one of the ways in my mind that it becomes modern and attractive is it's an enabler of fighting climate change. It's at the crux of, data, analytics, infrastructure, and that opens up a ton of opportunities for employees. And it also serves a really important public good for our customers and our stakeholders. And I think making people aware of that and sort of proactively and thoughtfully and intentionally building and managing that brand is really critical to long-term, talent attraction and employee retention for that matter. And I think we're starting on that journey and we got a ways to go as an industry.
So going back to your career progression, after ARPA-E, you went to Con Edison and you joined their Utility of the Future team. While there, you were tasked with developing a strategy and structure for innovation. Given what you learned at ARPA-E about commercialization barriers, how did you plan to scale innovation at Con Ed?
One of the things that stuck with me from ARPA-E that I think is relevant probably anywhere, but certainly at utilities, is think from the end. So most people start with like, what's my next step? But if you can define really clearly what success looks like, what problem are you solving? What would it mean to solve that problem? And having clarity on that end state, then you can figure out what are the right tactical steps to get there. And I think we in the utility industry had a a mentor who once said to me that utilities do strategy by tactics. And that was someone who was a mentor to me at Con Edison. So thinking about, again, what does the utility want to achieve? What do our stakeholders achieve? Defining that really clearly. And then going out and looking for and sourcing and developing and taking to market innovations that can address that need. And a good example of that is when I was there, we had the reforming the energy vision going on, a big push for renewables, in particular distributed renewables. And there's this really tired, argument in the industry between stakeholders and utilities where stakeholders often sort of stereotype a utility as getting in the way of distributed resources, and utilities say, well, you don't pay for the value of the grid, you don't think about the value of the grid. And that's a tired old thing. So like how do we work together to meet stakeholder needs and meet utility needs? And one of the things that was a lot of fun to work on at Con Edison was taking to market through our solar installers. So through third-party solar installers, a metering device by a vendor called Connector to enable faster solar interconnection for distributed PV. And that's a good example of, like, again, what I'm getting at is like start from the end and work backwards. Well, we want to get over this tired argument. We want to enable distributed renewables. We found this great technology. We found some willing partners in our solar installers there and rolled it out. So that's a good example of kind of taking some learnings from a previous job and taking some good mentorship and rolling that into something that worked out pretty well. So.
You talked about the need to start with the end goal and then work your way forward, which I couldn't agree with more. But innovation can be such a broad term and means so many different things to different people. I'm curious, how do you define success for your innovation department? What does that end goal for your team look like?
One of the things I think, and when we talk to other utilities who are thinking of setting up innovation departments, one of the things we counsel them on is it really does help to have a definition of innovation, an organizational definition of innovation. So not what is innovation overall or to the world, but what innovation means in your organizational context. And then a purpose and a mission and a vision. So I'll give you a little bit of the corporate speak just to give you an example, but I'm going to break it down in some concrete terms about what we mean by purpose. Our purpose is to harness the power of innovation to help Duquesne Light achieve its objectives and shape the future of the organization. So that's like, I know that sounds like corporate speak, but let me tell you it has a certain meaning in our context, which is harness the power of innovation. We're not that big as a utility, so we've got to do things like the Innovation Challenge where we're looking outside our own walls, where we're collaborating with third parties, we're collaborating with other industry partners to harness that power for a smaller utility. Help a utility achieve its objectives. So that means it's not about shiny things. Innovation isn't just about like the cool new whiz bang thing. It's about solving a real organizational need and a real organizational problem. So that's what that piece means. And then shape the future of the organization. What that means is we're proactive. So we're not waiting just for something bad to happen. We're going out, we're looking for new solutions. We're, canvassing the world. We're working with third parties to do that. So again, that sounds like corporate speak, but we've said it enough internally, hopefully, that people like harness the power of innovation, achieve its objectives, shape the future of the organization. Like, okay, I get what that actually means. And you start to be able to give examples and things like that. But that's an example of what it means in our context.
So now that you're doing innovation work at Duquesne, and you've got this innovation center project, I kind of bill you a utility innovation guru. So I'm curious to get your perspective. How have you seen utility innovation change over the years, and do you have any thoughts on the pace of change?
Yeah, well, I'll give you a glass half full and a glass half empty about the pace of change in our industry. Is it's definitely too slow. Let me just hit you with that. I'll start with the glass half. It's definitely too slow. It's too slow because the world is changing far faster than we're changing. Our customer needs are faster than we're changing. So we're gonna need to keep up. But my glass half full piece is being in a innovation role at a utility. One of the things you see is a lot of, again, collaboration with other utilities. And I'm seeing increasing prominence of innovation amongst utilities in their agenda, and staffing an actual team around it, and really the savvy of those teams that are staffed around it, having things like a mission and vision, avoiding the like shiny new thing syndrome, being really rigorous about the process that you use to drive that innovation, being very thoughtful about what you decide to do and what not to do. And, I think ultimately, while the world outside of utilities walls is going to force and push us, and I think a healthy way to change, ultimately it's the people inside who are going to enable that change.
How big is your team, and what are some of those key roles you need to hire for at the outset in order to be successful?
We're not a huge utility, so there's only 4 of us, but it's about the right size for a utility our size. And it's really important to be thoughtful and strategic about the set of skills that you need and the characteristics that you need. In general, one of the things that I think almost every innovation group needs is you need this mix between insiders and outsiders. Insider means like someone who understands the utility business, understands how utilities work, how they make money, has pre-existing relationships, has sort of pre-existing industry relationships, external relationships as well. And you need that insider perspective because ultimately you need, at least to some degree, the rest of the utility to come along with you. So having those relationships in place, having that knowledge in place is very helpful. If you get too much inside, it's going to be highly incremental. You tend to not make the sort of transformative big progress that you really want. And so you need that outside mix of skills. You need some skills that are sort of adjacent to the utility business model. Maybe it's a bit of analytics. Maybe it's a bit of machine learning. Maybe it's a bit of, in fact, it certainly is some entrepreneurial chops, some startup experience, maybe some venture experience. That's the general thing. When I'm thinking about building it from scratch, and thinking about the people, because it is all about the people, having that right mix of insiders and outsiders is really tough to achieve, but I think really critical to the ultimate success of those teams long term.
Part of what makes the Innovation Challenge so cutting edge is how it engages the public. It's a big cultural shift for a utility to put a problem in the public domain and ask for help coming up with a solution. I'm curious, how did you manage that cultural shift and really get people comfortable with the model for the challenge?
I mentioned we had a very serious safety incident in our underground network in April 2021. We made a variety of process changes to keep our employees safe. We made a variety of PPE changes to keep our employees safe. We did a very thorough investigation, and we felt good about the work that we did. But we realized the long-term piece that we really wanted to address was again, better situational awareness, better ability to monitor our cables so that we could better predict failures and address them before they happen. The nice thing is like we talked about it before, where you have a mission, you can win people over to that mission. And I think keeping our employees safe, making sure that we're delivering a very reliable and affordable product for our customers, that's something that people can get their heads around. That's something that people can rally around. When you have stories around that of, specific incidents of things that, we can address, that was really helpful in rallying folks both internally, but also rallying folks externally, because again, that's not a mission that we at Duquesne Light have alone. That's a mission that many other utilities share with us, and that kind of rallied people to that mission.
So clearly you believe innovation should be a core part of the utility business and not just something happening with a few products and services. You've described this as the Red Queen effect. Tell me what that means. I've not heard that one before.
The Red Queen effect actually refers to Alice in Wonderland. So Alice is somewhere in Wonderland, and the Red Queen is making her run faster and faster to stay in the same place. And so when I think about the Red Queen effect as it relates to utilities, I would say that climate change, aging infrastructure is causing a Red Queen effect, meaning if we just do what we're doing today, in my mind, climate change and aging infrastructure is going to make reliability worse. So we have to innovate just to stay in the same place. That's the Red Queen. We've got to use innovation to help us run faster, even to stay in the same place. Now, look, We all want to get better. We all want to deliver a more reliable and affordable product. And I think the other way in which innovation can help is to get you off that treadmill in the first place, right? To get you on another, maybe slower treadmill where you can actually get ahead. But yeah, the Red Queen effect again refers to needing to run faster to stay in the same place, just like Alice did. And that's one of the reasons why we need innovation, is to help us just keep up, much less get ahead. Although we want to, of course, use it to get ahead as well.
What will happen to utilities if they don't shake the perception that they are slow to change?
Here, I have to shout out my industry colleagues at Consumers Energy. So Consumers, they coined the term people, planet, and profits. When I think there's in my mind, a pretty tired argument in our industry. Well, if we aren't slow to change, is there going to be a death spiral, or are we going to exist, or whatever? I'm like, it almost doesn't matter, because at least what motivates me, and I think what motivates a lot of people in our industry and at our company to come to work every day is, again, people, planet, and profits. So if we're faster to change, if we're more open to innovation, if we're putting real effort to deliver a better future, we're going to have a better planet. We're going to have better people in the sense of, more engaged employees, happier customers, receiving the products and services that they want, and it's going to drive profits as well.
What superpower do you bring to push the energy transition forward?
Being able to take a punch, metaphorically, of course, not literally. I think persistence for those in innovation and change roles at utility is absolutely necessary. So I like to think I think we're pretty good at knowing not everything we do is going to be successful, but picking yourself up if you take a metaphorical punch, on a given day and keep moving forward. Again, it's so critical. So that'd be my superpower.
Josh, thank you very much for taking the time. It was really fascinating to hear your perspective on innovation. And, I'm really glad that your thought and energy is being dedicated to the utility space. Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much.
With Great Power is produced by GridX in partnership with Postscript Media. Delivering on the clean energy future is complex. GridX exists to simplify the journey. GridX is the enterprise rate platform that modern utilities rely on to usher in our clean energy future. We design and implement emerging rate structures, and we increase consumer investment in clean energy, all while managing the complex billing needs of a distributed grid. Our production team includes Aaron Hardick, Stephen Lacey, and Camille Stennis from Postscript Media. Ann Bailey is our story editor. The original theme song and mixing came from Sean Marquand. The GridX production team includes Jenny Barber and me, Brad Langley. If you're enjoying the show and it's providing value for you, and we really hope it is, please help us spread the word. You can rate and review us at Apple and Spotify, or you can share a link with a friend, colleague, or the energy nerd in your life. Thanks for listening. I'm Brad Langley.